Now, it's great to see that Xiaomi are finally listening. We've got 4K with a front-facing camera, 32 megapixels. It can shoot 4K 30, 4K 60. Well overdue, of course. For years, other brands and other flagships have offered this, just like video out and fast USB Type-C port speeds. So this is my final review, you could say, of the Xiaomi 14 Pro. I also have the titanium version now with 1 terabyte of storage, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and it is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. So the new chipset, some big improvements, great performance out of it. And with this model here, it is, of course, at the time of this video, it's the Chinese version. There's no global yet. That's going to be coming, and that will be probably in February next year. But this is a good preview of exactly what we can expect, but of course with those Chinese ROM shortcomings. Here is what you will find included. We get our Type-C to Type-A cable, and they include the charger, which is really good, and it's a fast, powerful 120 watts. Nice and compact and small because it is a GAN charger. Now, fully charging this phone in approximately 20 minutes. I'll give you the exact times I can get later on. We get this too as well, which contains our SIM tray tool. There's a little bit of paperwork there, and they even do include a case. Now, other brands should do this. We should get the case. We should also get the charger and the cable. So you can see it is a clear case here, so we can still look at that lovely titanium. I bought both of the phones from these guys right here, Trading Shenzhen. That is what they include in the box. There was no import taxes to pay on this. It takes around about 7 to 10 days to make it to me from China. And I wanted to point out that I bought both of them, okay? So both of these phones, none of them are from Xiaomi. They're both, of course, the Chinese model. Global will be coming approximately in February next year, so there is a bit of a wait for those, of course. Now, the titanium versus the normal one. It does look really nice, feels good in hand. That texture of the titanium gives it another level of feel to it, just feeling just a tad more premium. Now, the weight difference, nothing, okay? You're not going to notice that. No one's going to notice 7 grams difference. If I would give this to someone and say, hey, tell me which phone's heavier, it's pretty much impossible to tell. So 223 grams on the left here with the normal version. Sorry, on the right here with the titanium version versus the 230 grams here. You cannot tell the difference. So the backing material here is glass. It has a matte finish to it, so it doesn't show the fingerprints and smudges that much, but you can see a little bit of it happening here. I have intentionally not cleaned these phones so you can see what they do look like after you've been handling them. So cameras, we've got 3 50 megapixel cameras on the rear. The variable aperture, I showed this in the hands-on video that I did first. It's really good to have this. So it goes from a very bright f1.4 up to 4.0 aperture mechanical with the various different stages. We've got laser autofocus assist with this. It's all optical image stabilized, the main camera and the zoom camera, which is 3.2. And yes, there is an IR blaster. Thank you for everyone pointing that out in my hands-on video. About 100 people that told me that it's now here instead of being on the top where it used to be. So looking at them side by side here, you'll see that we've got loudspeakers at the top, the antenna lines. Down the bottom, we have our 2 SIM trays. So the SIM trays, both of them exactly the same. They take nano SIMs. There's no micro SD card support. Video out, of course, and the loudspeaker downwards firing, and then the top one. So it's in stereo. So great that they've got video out with this and the USB 3.0 speeds, but there is one thing that's missing, and it's Android Auto support. We're not going to get it because of the Chinese ROM. There's something missing that Android Auto needs that. It'll be in the global version. So that's another reason to go for the global version. And this is it next to an iPhone. No, I'm not an iPhone fan at all. I'm not a fanboy. I just wanted to point out that they've got the titanium finish. Is Xiaomi's titanium better? Not really. They're about the same. I have to say the Apple quality feels just a little better, but I do like we're seeing a little bit more texture with that titanium with the Xiaomi, and you can see our buttons there on the right-hand side. Very good feel to them, and you can distinguish that one being the power, because when you touch it, it does feel slightly different, with little indents there with that red, and you can see more of those antenna lines. So glass on the back there, and we have their own smash-proof glass here on the front. Fingerprint reader works really well, and no, I won't be doing that crazy test where someone in China was using the screen to hammer in nails, or basically using it like a hammer. No, I will not be testing that out because I'm sure Although the screen might be fine, I'm not going to risk it at all. So there they are, both of the different versions, this being the base model in black and the premium titanium, 1TB, 16GB of RAM. So I would go for it for the storage capacity, not for the looks of it really, because the other model is the same really, feels very good, both of them, both premium phones, excellent build quality. So Xiaomi's gone with a superb screen. This is flat, but it has some very curved edges on it. The bezels, they're not the smallest you would have seen out there, but it's 120 Hz, very fluid, very smooth, no problems with any lag. I haven't seen any. And what about the brightness? Well, you can make it out in direct sunlight. They claim 3000 nits. Now, I can't measure 3000 nits. You need HDR enabled. Even manually putting it into the sunlight mode, it still doesn't reach 3000 nits. You can choose the refresh rate options between 120 Hz and 60. Resolution by default is Full HD+, but I always run what you pay for, and that is our 1440p with the display. So really good. You can tweak the colors, everything like that. It's a fantastic top-tier flagship display. So because I've got the base model with the 12GB of RAM, which is on the left, and then on the right, I do have the 16GB, 1TB titanium version. You can see the difference it does make with the exact same processor here, but we have, of course, more RAM. It gives us about 73, almost 73,000 points more with Antutu. That's not much of a difference at all, and not a reason to buy the phone. Now, both of them got up to about the same temperature. In fact, it was 0.4 degrees warmer on the titanium version running Antutu. Both of them lost 3%. Now, how hot does the phone get when you run this kind of benchmark? Well, it will get up to about 49 degrees gaming. That's the hottest I really see the phone get up to. But if you try to run like 3D Mark, stress test, wildlife, then it goes over 50 degrees. It does get scorching hot. So the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 is a noticeable step up over the Gen 2 in its performance, especially with the GPU. But do you actually notice this? So a lot of games are capped at 60 frames per second, like Genshin Impact that I'm playing here. A level 50 character now, and I'm eventually level 46, I think it is. It seems to run exactly the same as the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. Now, this comment in my hands-on in first impressions video, I annoyed and angered a lot of little Genshin fanboys. But that is really it. You're getting about 3 frames per second average more in some more demanding areas. You're not going to notice a huge difference. It really is a simple fact. Unless you run synthetic benchmarks, then you'll see it's a huge difference. But in actual real-life gaming, you're not going to notice that difference that much. And it's just the way it is, especially with the games that are really visually demanding, like Genshin Impact. You can't really distinguish the difference. Onto that UI performance. So we now have HyperOS, and essentially it is MIUI. It kind of all looks the same kind of icon sets. They've tweaked a few things. Now, there were a comment or two about I was wrong with the LTE band 20 support, and I do apologize for that. First video was first impressions. I can get on 4G, but it turned out to be LTE band 28. I'm sorry about that. So you may have issues getting onto 4G because it is the Chinese model. You may have issues with 5G, so check with your network what kind of bands you do need, whether or not it's going to support it, because it's not a global modem at all. Now, performance of MIUI, HyperOS, but it's the same thing, is very, very good. I don't see any stutters. I don't see any lags at all. It is very, very smooth, running at 120 frames per second. Most of the time, Task Manager swapping over apps is quick, but even though I've got 16 gigabytes of RAM with a titanium version, it does occasionally kill off the apps with the Task Manager, which is kind of defeats the purpose of getting 16 gigabytes. Charge time, 21 minutes. That's it. 120 watt charging. That's all it took to charge the 4,880 milliamp hour battery to go from 9% to 100. Incredible charging speeds. So it does not disappoint there. Battery runtime, well, with my fixed battery benchmark test, 11 hours and 19 minutes at Full HD Plus resolution. I forgot to set it to QHD, so it ran for a very good time here at 120 Hz, but realistically, you are looking at only around 6 to 7 hours of on-screen time. That's all I can get. I don't find the battery life to be amazing. I think it's about the same as the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. I see no real efficiency improvements at all with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 so far in my testing. Internal storage speeds now are phenomenal. Look at this, almost 4,000 megabytes per second sequential reads and well over 3,000 for sequential writes. Randoms are very good, so incredibly fast internal storage, UFS 4.0 spec. This was another common question that popped up is, can we enable wind noise cancelling through the settings for video? Yes, you can, but when you enable it, it makes your voice sound quite muffled, so we can't really win either way. Xiaomi needs to put a hardware wind filter either end of the phone, I think, would fix that issue and improve things when it comes to video audio. And if you wanted to use a third-party launcher like Nova Launcher, you still have this issue with Xiaomi that you can't use the system-wide system gestures. You have to use menu keys when using a third-party launcher. And if you plan on using Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, it is in Full HD, Widevine Level 1 cert. Bloatware, yes, there is plenty of it. So out of the box, there's going to be a lot of Chinese bloatware applications. I've removed them all now, as you can see with this screenshot. But it is kind of an annoyance and something that you're just going to have to live with at first when you get the Chinese model. Haptics is good, a nice little strong burst. Not quite as good as the haptics on the Poco F2 Pro. That's one of my favorites. And voice call quality does have active noise cancellation. So here is a loudspeaker sample. They're good sounding speakers. They're not the loudest, but they have a very good, decent amount of bass to them for a phone. And then our cameras. So as I mentioned at the start of the video, great to see finally 4K with the front-facing camera. The quality is good. It's actually not bad at all for their first attempt at 4K with the front-facing camera. Now the rear cameras, I've compared them, as you can see now with this camera comparison, up against the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the S23 Ultra, and they do really well. Xiaomi does well to compete with these two other flagships. They won't win out in two areas. For me, is video stabilization could be improved upon, and the other is the audio too has a lot of wind noise susceptibility to that. Now there's a filtering option you can turn on, but it muffles your voice. The other two as well is night shots. Very good with the Xiaomi. I was impressed. If you want to see a lot more on the cameras, do check out that camera comparison. It's about 14 minutes long, but if you're seriously considering buying this phone, I think it's worth a look if you love your cameras. Now the latest patch with 8K video, it does seem to now have electronic image stabilization. This is 30 frames per second. We didn't have this option with their previous models. It was always 8K 24 frames per second. So great that they give this the smoother 30 frames per second. So you see when I move about that occasionally the electronic image stabilization or the optical, I think it's both. I think we do have a little bit of electronic here. Doesn't seem to be as good as 4K. There is at times a bit of rocking motion, and I'm trying to be as smooth as possible. But you see now when I pan and hold it really steady, isn't too bad. And being 8K, that gives us a lot of room now to crop in and still have very usable footage. So this is really a solid offering from Xiaomi. I'm looking forward to seeing the global release of this, which will be about February, I think the end of February next year. So there's still a bit of a wait, but we can pretty much tell exactly what we're going to be in store for here, what we are getting, without having the problems you get with the Chinese ROM. So no LTE band 20, the 5G support may also be patchy for you, no Android Auto. You've only got it in Chinese and English. And the other big one is Xiaomi has pretty much locked down the bootloaders. It is, well, officially unlocked still, but you need to have super high level access. Someone told me it's like level 5. You need to be a Xiaomi community member, and you need to get the special codes. You have to live in China. So for most people, it is literally going to be impossible to unlock the bootloader, flash a global ROM or a Xiaomi EU ROM or a custom ROM. No, that's all being blocked out now. Xiaomi doesn't want any part of that. And if they're going to do that, I don't have a huge problem with that, but just release the phones all at once. So global and Chinese at the same time would be good. But what we're getting on offer here, the cameras, the screen, the build quality, the performance, all good apart from what I pointed out with the thermals, that if you run some of those really demanding stress tests, this thing cooks itself, gets up to about 53 degrees Celsius, 52 degrees. But that's only synthetic benchmarks like wildlife extreme test. If you do and run normal games, normal gaming, then it's about 49 degrees. That's the only thing that really concerns me. Battery life so far isn't actually that great. It's about like 7 hours, 7.5 hours on screen time. And that's if you're not doing something demanding. Anything like gaming or using the camera a lot, recording a lot of 4K footage, yeah, you're going to notice the battery isn't wonderful, and 8K video performance needs improving. Microphones need improving really, but that is it. It's a great solid phone, but I think you're probably best to wait for the global version.